My name is Dr. Carol Wade. I'm an assistant professor at the School of Social Work at the University of Windsor, and I'm also a member of YouthREX academic network. Before my full-time academic career, I worked for over 25 years in the child welfare sector that included overseeing an equity practice integration department for a child welfare organization. The calling cards in the kit provide 16 scenarios across 4 important themes: Black youth voice, Black youth mental health and well-being, intersectional identities, and allyships and advocacy to support your critical reflexivity in making connections between your understandings of anti-Black racism and anti-Black racism action. The 4 questions that guides your critical reflection for each of the 16 scenarios across the 4 themes involves the identification of deep-seated assumptions, then continuing to developing actions at the individual, program, and community levels to improve services and outcomes for Black youth and Black families. The first question asks, what's happening here? This question asks you to consider what the scenario is describing and what is at play from your own perspective, informed by your identities and lived experiences. Who are the people that are involved? What is your interpretation or explanation of the situation? What are the main themes and patterns that are emerging for you from your understanding of the situation? Whose perspective is represented and present, and whose are missing? The second question asks, what are the assumptions I'm making in describing what's happening? So reflect on the assumptions you made in describing what is happening. Are there perspectives that you did not consider? Were certain biases triggered? Where were you on seeing gaps in accurately and equitably assessing the scenario? What were some of the assumptions you made about the scenario? What social and structural assumptions influence your understanding of the scenarios? What were your values and how did they guide you? Where do these assumptions come from? What social and power functions does upholding these assumptions perform? What practices, systems, or structures are upheld by these assumptions? The third question asks, what are the harms for Black youth, families, and communities? Regardless of our intention, we all have the capacity to perpetrate harm due to the pervasiveness of anti-Black racism. What harms, including microaggressions, are being perpetrated in this scenario? What harms might you have inadvertently perpetrated in the assumptions you made about what is happening? Racial healing recognizes the need to acknowledge and tell the truth about past wrongs created by individuals and systemic racism and address their present consequences. The fourth question is a call to action and asks, how can this be made right? What can I or we do to make this right? This prompt asks you to name how the harms within each scenario can be made right and encourages you to consider the actions that you might take in your own practice or sphere of influence, whether that be individually, collectively, organizationally, and systemically, to respond to anti-Black racism in ways that advance the well-being of Black youth. The W.K. Kellogg Foundation analysis describes racial healing as a process that restores individual and communities to wholeness. It repairs the damages caused by racism and transforms societal structures into ones that affirm the inherent values of all people. This process provides an opportunity to acknowledge and speak the truth about past wrongs created by individual and systemic racism and addresses present-day consequences for people, communities, and institutions. To support the well-being of Black youth, it is important to engage in regular critical self-reflexivity practice to challenge our biases, which are consistently absorbed by various sources, including media, the classrooms, and other influencing factors. By doing so, we can avoid causing harm and better support the well-being of Black youth. Critical self-reflexivity is a tool that can support us to unlearn and learn new ways to work with Black youth by fostering personal growth, community engagement, and advocacy for systemic changes.